Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to our Sunday morning class. We're trying to figure out exactly the timings because we have our father-son minyan starting at 9:15. If anyone is a father, son, or grandfather, they're welcome to come with their kids 7 to 15 or 16 and join us. We have a tefillah class and a beautiful raffle. It's really beautiful to come every week. So we're working out making sure the times work. But for the moment, we're going to do a shorter class today, okay? Rabotai, there's a fascinating pasuk in this week's parasha. You know, Yitzchak and Rivka, they're waiting for a long time to be able to have a child. And they finally have two children, right? Sorry, Abraham waits a long time to have kids, and he has Yitzchak. Yitzchak as well waits a long time with Rivka to have kids, and then they have two children. They have Yaakov and they have Esav. Now, Esav, we all know, is a wicked child. I mean, he's not born wicked per se. He has tendencies. He's capable of overcoming them. But he chooses a path different than his brother. And Esav, by the time he's 13, by the time from 13 to 15, takes a very different path to his brother. And finally, it culminates on the day of Abraham's passing. We read about the fact that Esav does the 5 great sins. He murders, and he steals, and he kidnaps, and he rapes a woman. Unbelievable, this guy at 15, he's a hardened criminal, Crips in the Bloods, this guy, okay? What's fascinating to me is a little message that Yitzchak gives to Yaakov, okay? And he says to him, and he blesses Yaakov, and then he tells him, please don't marry from the women of Canaan. Right before he sends him off. He blesses him and he sends him, he says, please don't marry the girls of Canaan. Now the Sefarim, the Chafetz Chaim and others, they teach us a tremendous lesson from here. We see that when a person is trying to communicate with or give their son or daughter tochacha, you have to be better in school, don't get involved with these people, don't spend your money this way. Before you're going to criticize someone, you have to bless them. Yitzchak Avinu realizes he's about to tell his son who he could get Jawez to, who he should be dating, who he's swiping on J-Swipe, okay? He wants to tell him something. Before he could say anything, he has to bless him. Because children do not respond to criticism. The first thing that needs to be established before anyone could take any critique is that your intentions for them are for their benefit and not for yours. Not that you should feel better, that you could look down on them, that you could tell them off. The same thing we find that Yaakov learned the lesson from his father. When he goes down to the area where he meets Rachel, and he sees all the shepherds, and they're all hanging out there, and Yaakov says to them, Od hayom gadol, there's plenty of time still. Why are you guys lounging around? You should be grazing the sheep. You should be moving. You're being paid. You're stealing. But before he gives them those words, Yaakov Avinu says to them one very important word. He says, Ahai, my brothers. If you've not established that the relationship is one of love, one of connection, then what the person hears from you is only criticism. And there's nothing that people like to hear less than criticism. You want to tell your friend he has a drug problem? Don't tell him he has a drug problem. Tell him how great of a guy he is, how sensitive he is with his friends, how much you can rely. I would die for you. You would die for me. We're best brothers, etc., etc. When the guy hears that, and then you could say to him, it's only because I love you this much, yet that I feel like I have to say something. How could I be a good friend and not say something? You guys hear that? But the chidush to me is that it doesn't say this. That Yitzchak said, oh, my son, you're the best. Like they say, Mafi, Mitlak, there's nobody like you. And then he gives him the thing about who he should marry. Who does Yitzchak have to do this little game with? Yaakov Avinu. The student, the child, that's now going to run away from home and go spend 14 years in yeshiva with his legs in a pail of ice water so he doesn't sleep an extra moment that is necessary. The biggest tzaddik, Yaakov is Bechir Avot, the chosen one. From amongst the Avot, Yaakov is the best of the Avot. A lot of times, we hear classes on chinuch, we hear ideas about how to deal with someone, and you think, okay, that's for an Esav guy. That's for my drug addict friend. That's for this one. That's for that one. You don't think that you need to do these moves with someone who's a righteous person, who's a good guy. But Rabotai, human beings are human beings are human beings. It doesn't matter if the guy goes to shul every day. It's still not so nice to have someone correct you about your tefillin. It's still not so nice to have someone tell you that you read the word wrong. Even if you're a good guy. No, Rabbi, I thought he's so religious, he probably would be happy for me to correct him. Operative word? Probably. You see, the Torah is teaching us this lesson with Yaakov Avinu. And Rabotai, I want to say that from this conversation, we're actually given a glimpse into into a problem that people often don't realize. You know, one of the biggest challenges that schools face is the child that slips through the cracks. Now, what's fascinating to me is that in times of old, who were the kids that slipped through the cracks in the yeshivas, in the Jewish schools? Who were the kids that slipped through the cracks? It used to be the kid that slipped through the cracks was the kid with special needs. You know, the kid with such bad ADHD, none of the teachers could deal with him. So what did they do? All right, you know, what am I going to do? I'm going to give the guy the test. Look, it's impossible to teach him anyway. Today, our school systems have excelled. We've gone supernova on every special need, on every reading disorder, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyspraxia, whatever you want to do, you know, everyone that you can imagine. We have a solution for. We have a learning technique. We recognize and isolate ADHD. We figure out, does the kid need Ritalin? Does he not need Ritalin? Does he need this? Does he need that? Do we treat ADHD as an advantage even? You know, etc. Everything's figured out. Now, not only is there no cracks for special needs, right, in the schools, now, not only that, we lined the floor with extra polymer coating. There's a layer of covering the crack from on top. So, one of the tragic things is that in many ways, what used to be a crack for those kids, the kids that found themselves at the bottom of the barrel, is now the crack finds itself, Rabotai, in the middle of the barrel. The great kids, the schools have amazing stuff for. They have gifted and talented track, Talmud track, philosophy track, amazing. The kids are going straight to yeshiva, straight to Harvard, whatever. The best kids, extra care. The worst, pardon when I say worst, I mean worst students, the kids suffering with the biggest difficulties, tons of programs for it. You know who gets lost? The middle of the road kid, who doesn't cause any trouble. He doesn't have any serious difficulties. He's also not an extra good student. He's just a regular student. That kid oftentimes gets no attention paid to them. And Rabotai, it's not a problem in schools. It's a problem in families too. You know, where he said that, you know, middle child. I think the word middle is used here arbitrarily. There's a middle child that happens to be born in the middle, and every middle kid in a family feels middle child syndrome, that the oldest kid can't do anything wrong, the youngest kid is the family baby, the middle kids, they're the ones that get shafted. They don't get any presents, they don't get any attention. You know, a lot of middle kids feel that way. But Rabotai, the word middle over here I'm using euphemistically, because the middle kid is also the child that's not middle in age, but middle in production, middle in ability. The good kid, oh, we got to get him straight to the best yeshivas, the best schools, the best everything. The kid struggling the most, oh, we need to take him to therapy, do everything. The kid that's not so bad, not so good, what winds up happening with him? He's easy. He doesn't need extra care. So we forget this message of Yitzchak and Yaakov, that you need a blessing before you can criticize. That kid doesn't feel the love, doesn't feel the attention. And one of the saddest things, Rabotai, I'll share with you, was something that a kid told me. He said, you know, he grew up and he had a terrible relationship with his parents. So I said, tell me, what happened that you have such animosity? He said, Rabbi, nothing happened. I said, nothing happened? Then why are you so angry? Listen what he said. He said, it's not their fault. They didn't even mean to do it, and I don't even know if there's an it that they did. I said, so, he says, when I was growing up, my brother had a very, very serious form of cancer. My parents wound up spending all the time taking this kid back and forth to the hospital, nonstop. So every time I got home, where's mommy? Where's daddy? With this kid. Where's mommy? Where's daddy? With this kid. Where's mommy? Where's daddy? With this kid. Can we go to the play at the park now? No, we have to take this one to the... Can we go here? No. Can we do the thing? No. Can we buy the thing? We don't have any money. Why? We're spending money on the treatment, so they didn't do anything. This kid wanted to go to the park. He wanted toys. And the other kid had cancer. They spent their money, they spent their time, and the kid that needed their money and they needed their time. The boy said to me, he said, they didn't even do anything. There was nothing they could have done differently. He says, but bottom line, at the time when my emotions were being formed towards my parents, I felt like, justified or not, I was an abandoned child. You hear this? Abandoned child. Rabotai, one of the things to realize is the pasuk says, "Kichitzim biyad hagibor, ken yemeh b'nei haneurim." Like arrows in the hand of a mighty warrior, so is the age of youth. What does that mean? Our rabbis explain that when you have a warrior who shoots an arrow, the arrow goes very far. And the interesting thing about an arrow is that if a person is dying, I don't know if you ever seen in the movies, you have a guy sitting there taking he's sniping from the rooftop. So they don't just shoot the guy like the Clint Eastwood, John Wayne. They're not just shooting from the hip. They sit the gun down. Then they check the wind, right? Then they take the scope and they look and they measure things and they start writing down calculations. That's doing maths now, right? The wind, the trajectory, the thing, the speed, the bullet, right? After 17 minutes of calculations, boom, he shoots one bullet, it's the guy right in the heart. Why are the calculations so precise? Because when something is traveling over such a great distance, the tiniest variation, a quarter of an inch, a quarter of a centimeter, if over here it's this much apart, as it moves, it goes further and further and further. If you put a pebble underneath a rocket, Rabotai, it would hit another planet, hundreds of thousands or even millions of miles away. Because as the angle projects itself over time, it gets further and further and further and further away. Kichitzim biyad hagibor, like an arrow in the hands of a mighty warrior, ken yemeh b'nei haneurim. In their times, they didn't have rockets. They didn't have snipers. What weapon traveled the farthest? An arrow. In whose hands did it travel the farthest? In the hands of a mighty warrior. Rabotai, that is the days of youth. When someone is young, when someone is at the beginning of their trajectoral path, shifting the needle a quarter of an inch, a quarter of a centimeter, will pay dividends all throughout the person's life. So if you think to yourself, Hazit's father, what's he supposed to do? He's sitting there, he's in the hospital. What could he have done differently? You know what the answer is, Rabotai? It's over time. One more meeting, one more lunchtime, one more toy, one more makes such a huge difference that a person thinks to himself, anyway, it's so difficult. I may as well give up. I had something I used to do in London. I remember I went to a bakery. They had like a breakfast. They had Mr. Baker, it was called. Okay, they had coffee, they had muffins, they had all bagels, falafel, all different kinds of foods. Anyway, one day I turn up there with my daughter Chon. I'm sitting in Mr. Baker. So I see some people I know. Hello, how you doing? The waiter, waitress, the owner, he comes over, says hello. I finish eating, I pay my bill, I leave. Maybe 7 minutes later, I walk in again. Who am I sitting with now? My second daughter, Shoshana. Guy's looking at me. What is this? I sit down and have another breakfast. You think this shape takes care of itself? I got to invest in the. Come on, right? Competitive eating had that, right? I sit there, I have breakfast. The guy is looking at me, he doesn't say nothing. All right, listen, money's money. I finish the meal, I leave, 7 minutes later, I walk in, Rachel, sit down at the table, my third daughter. Finally, the owner comes over, he says, Tagid li, ma ta mishuga? I saw you here with your thing, and then you came back again, and you came back again 3 times. I said, the truth is, I've been away on these trips. I would take people to Poland. I just came back, it's Sunday. I said, and I know that if I go out with all my kids to eat, then each kid doesn't actually feel like they got any time. Going out with your family is not going out with your daughter. You understand? This family time and this child time. We're witnessing in Yitzchak this hyper attention to one child, even to a great child, when he needs to give him what seems to be an obvious piece of advice, like don't marry, Oveda Avodah Zarah. He's a big tzaddik. The tiniest criticism to the best student from the best teacher still needs to be sugar-coated and to be given over with love. How much could we change with a little bit more love? So maybe think to yourself over this week, with the people in your life that you want to influence, whether it's good friends, whether it's children, especially middle children or middle friends, okay? Whether it's students, whether it's parents, how you can invest in them to be able to take the relationship to another place, to be able to influence it in a better way, and Be'ezrat Hashem, love, like they say, always wins in the end. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chananya ben